Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us again today for our weekly webinar. I'm thrilled that we're going to be talking tourism today. We know how vitally important tourism is to Issaquah and the surrounding area. And we know what a challenge it has been for our tourism partners during COVID and the stay at home. Especially in King County, knowing that with any luck, Friday we'll go into a phase 2, where many other counties are already going into phase 3. It makes it even harder for us to have to spend even longer operating with such stringent requirements. I guess on the other hand, the good side of that is we get to see some others in areas of Washington that are in stage 3, so we can also look to see what's going on there. What I'm seeing and hearing is equal amounts of concern for safety and people not quite ready to jump back out there in the community, right to the other extreme where everybody is just like, I can't wait, and they're just jumping to get out there and do things. And of course, we want to talk about that today, specifically towards tourism. So I want to let you know that we have Alan Stevens with Salish Lodge that's here to help us today, along with Stanford Lee from Snoqualmie Casino, and of course our Beth Javins, who is the Executive Director for Visit Issaquah. So I'm going to let the three of them just kind of kick off and tell us what things have been like for them, what they've been noticing, important issues from where they're at today and where what they've gone through the past 3-4 months. Maybe a little bit of visioning into what we can expect. Like we've done in the past, I want to remind you, keep yourself on mute. If you think of a question, instead of interrupting the speakers, what we're going to do is ask you to just jot your question into the chat so that you don't have to worry about forgetting it. And after we've given them all a few minutes to talk to us, then we'll open it up for Q&A, and your questions will be saved in the chat. Russell Mallory, he's our communications expert. Wave, Russell. He's going to keep track of the chat and who's asking what questions, so we'll make sure all of your questions get answered today. So with that, I'm going to pick on my good friend Stanford Lee and ask if you would like to go first, and then I'll follow up with Alan and then Beth.
Absolutely. It's so good to see everybody. Can't believe it's been almost 3 months since we've seen each other face to face. For Snoqualmie Casino, even though we've been closed for the last 3 months, it doesn't mean that we haven't been busy. We've been preparing all of our safety protocols, making sure that we were following all of the state and national health recommendations to make sure that we opened our doors in the most appropriate and safe way that we could, that was possible. With the state entering phase 1.5, it really gave us that opportunity to invite back long-awaited guests. And very unlike what some of our counterparts in the rest of the state have done, we actually chose to open a little bit later than the rest of the casinos. And, really wanted to emphasize that we were looking out for our team members more than anything else before we opened. One of the things that I'm sure as you see all the commercials and news, I'm sure you guys have seen the safety protocols that we've put in place: plexiglass, temperature scans, masks. I'm in my office by myself, otherwise I'd be wearing a mask as well. But, the biggest thing for us was making sure that any safety concerns, any confidence in opening started from the inside out. So we wanted to make sure that our student body felt comfortable before we ever even considered opening the doors. And also we emphasized during that whole time that, we wanted to follow the state's safety recommendations as closely as possible, because not only were our guests watching, but our team members were watching as well. So by offering them and educating them on all of the specifics of COVID-19 and all of the specifics of our safety measures, that's what got us to the point that we could successfully open. And I'm very happy to announce that as of our general public opening last Thursday, we've actually got to about 90% of our revenue that we were before in last June, and with half of the people. So, that speaks volumes to making sure that your top guests and your most frequent guests felt safe. So right now for us, as our way of following the state's recommended occupancy guidelines, we limit our occupancy in the building to under 1,000. So our typical capacity is about 8,000. So when we get to that 1,000 mark, we're about 12% full. So we wanted to stay under that 15% mark that was set for retail. And I understand that restaurants were set at 25%, so we're well under that. But, we're off to a good start. So we're wishing the same success to everybody else who's on the call.
Thank you, Stanford. And I just want to qualify, did you say 90%?
Yeah, so right now, revenue-wise, people have been pent up for the last 3 months. Some of the things that I would emphasize just as a best practice, even though we were closed, we always tried to stay top of mind. We would always contact our VIP customers. A lot of our customers continually receive communication from us. We didn't feel it was quite responsible to just broadcast ads over the airwaves. Although we did want to send out a stay safe message, which I'm sure some of you guys have seen that. But most of the contacts that we had with our guests were very interpersonal. For our top 2,300 customers, for example, they would always receive calls from our player development team, just checking in. Not necessarily a sales call, but just to check and make sure that they were okay. And by doing that, it really strengthened that bond, strengthened that relationship. So the minute we opened our doors, we didn't actually ask them to come in right away. We actually had a little soft opening and said, if you feel comfortable coming, we'd love to show you our safety protocols. And so for the first week before we even opened to the public, we actually had a few of our VIPs come in just to look and see what were some of the things that we've done. And at the same time, it allowed our team members to actually practice a lot of their service standards. One of the things that we really wanted to avoid was this mass chaotic public opening. We wanted to make sure that people were still able to socially distance. And also, you wouldn't see that in a line, and you wouldn't see that, and you don't really want to have lines from a service-oriented standpoint. So by doing our little soft opening, or our soft introduction, as we called it, we were able to fully prepare and make sure that we were able to tweak anything that needed to be tweaked before we hit our general public opening. And, in the last week, so I guess we'll be open 1 full week as of tomorrow, even with that limited occupancy and the limited number of bodies that we've had in the building. Our top 20% of our customers are fully back. And as you know, the 80-20 rule, the top 20% of your customers represent 80% of your revenue. So a lot of those guys have returned and got us off to a great start.
Well, that is encouraging news, Stanford. Thank you. Alan Stevens, you run Salish Lodge, our beautiful luxury resort right up the hill. How is it going for you, and what are some of the things that have happened recently that you would like to share?
Sure. Thank you so much, Kathy. Thank you, everyone, to the Chamber for having us. Congratulations, Stanford, on your success and your team's success. And a special shout out to Mayor Matt as well. Thanks for being here today, even though you're not showing your face. That's okay. Don't be shy. All right. So I'm going to start with a selfish plug. Obviously, I am in business, right? So I was going to broadcast live today from our new expanded outdoor patio here at the Lodge. First time the Lodge has featured outdoor dining. So we have COVID to thank for it. That's fantastic. But unfortunately, those silly guests decided to go and want to dine out there. So I thought it'd be a little weird for me to be broadcasting while everybody's trying to enjoy a wonderful dining experience outside. So there are some great things because of COVID, meaning that we can try new and different things. Stanford alluded to being the 25%. And that is along the same lines as the Lodge here. It allows our team, as they come back, to walk before they run. and try out new procedures. Columbia Hospitality was fortunate enough, smart enough, if you want to call it that, to partner with Ecolab and start what's called Columbia Clean. So Columbia Hospitality manages almost 50 different hospitality enterprises throughout, I think, 6 states now. So with our partnership with Ecolab, as well as the fact that we're running the Inter Virginia Mason in partnership with Virginia Mason Hospital, allowed us to really look at new and different cleaning procedures, cleaning more often, wiping down high-touch surfaces, and really educating our housekeeping teams and our front-of-house teams on where to clean, why to clean, and how often. So really great partnership there. That's been wonderful. Our team members are going through temperature checks as well as they enter the building. We're fortunate enough to have 1 team member entrance and doing temperature checks every single day for every single team member. And we broadcast that in our lobby areas to make sure that our guests feel safe about the service they provide. We've gotten a little creative. We've had to get creative, as I just said, outdoor dining and patio seating. You just saw that on our Instagram if you follow us, so check it out. It's awesome. But little things like, do you want a server to approach your table with gloves? Ideally, not always, right? So we have a little thing that we actually feature, again, selfish plug, a little CBD hand sanitizer spray that smells amazing like rosemary mint. We do sell this in the country store. So when your server approaches your table, rather than glove up all the time, they're spraying that nice, wonderful rosemary scent on their hands, sanitizing and approaching the table. Just gives a better feel for the guest experience. The lodge has been around for over 100 years, servicing, weary travelers coming across the mountains at that time. And we're just enjoying this right now, welcoming our guests back. I can't say that we're at 90% of revenues like Stanford. I'm jealous. But last Saturday, for example, you could tell the pent-up demand was there. Even though it wasn't the best weather, we ran at 86% occupancy at the lodge, and we served over 500 diners throughout our various outlets throughout the day. We've gotten creative in the ways that we can expand our meeting space and join it into our dining space. So even though we're limited to 25%, that number can increase as we sort of creep into our meeting space. It's been wonderful. So anyway, that's some of the things that have gone on here at the lodge. We hope to see you all back here soon. I like to joke with my friends, unlike Stanford, I didn't take the last 3 months off. In the hotel business, we are an essential workplace. So I joke with my friends that, they can support an essential worker. And our teams have been here from the whole time. I was not going to be the general manager who shut down Salish Lodge and Spa. That was not going on my resume. So anyway, come back and see us. We'd love to have you.
Great. Thank you, Alan. And I didn't even know there were scented hand sanitizers. So I've learned something.
Okay. $10.95. Come buy some.
I'm going to come shopping. That's it. Okay. So now Beth Javins is, as I mentioned earlier, she's our executive director with Visit Issaquah. Beth, you have been keeping your finger on the pulse nationally, statewide, regionally, and locally. I know there's a lot of gloom and doom and some numbers, but I think that there's some optimism and some good numbers that you have recently been uncovering as well. So I'll let you take it from here.
Awesome. Thanks, Kathy. Thanks for everybody who's on the call today. We all in the tourism industry know how passionate we are about what we do in the hospitality world, and we can talk for a long time, but I only have 5 minutes, so or less. I don't know if screen share can get turned back on. I had some documents and some info that I wanted to share with you, and it's telling me I've been disabled, so. We have been doing several presentations recently to the mayors, to the council, to the Mayor's Recovery Task Force, to leadership groups with our partners here in Issaquah to talk about the importance of travel in the hospitality industry and how hard our industry has been hit and how long that recovery is going to take. And fresh off of an email today from U.S. Travel, we have some information on the U.S. travel forecast and the growth for 2020, 2021, and 2022. Obviously, our community's been impacted. We lost 100 rooms and lost a hotel basically for COVID recovery. So we, Alan knows hotels never close. They just don't. And this is one of those experiences that is very rare. So we are now in 2 hotel mode. Probably my forecast is for the remainder of the year. So that definitely affects business. Our Seattle partners are suffering, and that hurts us tremendously because they're a great feeder market for us. Air travel, cruise lines, we get so much visitation. And so one of the things that we sought out to do to help in the recovery for the area was to do some data mining and contract with a company that is enabling us to track, most people think that's creepy, but we all do it, track our visitors through town, in town. So we geofenced 6 different points of interest, including our hotels. And so we can see over the last 2 years, we have historical data, and our data suggests that our #1 driver to Issaquah is our outdoor recreation, from Lake Sammamish State Park to Tiger Mountain to Duthie Hill. Those are the biggest drivers to the area, and 60% of those visitors do not spend their dollars here in our community. And so that is something that we hope to affect through smart marketing. And because of the data mining and the analytics that we're doing, we're able to take a look at the data from the last 2 years and see where those people have come from traditionally. The messaging is going to be, several partners on the call have alluded to the types of messaging that's out there. We're trying to keep our finger on the pulse of our traveler sentiment, but also the business readiness and the community sentiment. As you know, there are a lot of communities that have shown a reluctance or willingness to want to receive visitors. So, and for some very significant reasons. So we want to make sure that our messaging is appropriate for the phases, and then it can evolve through the phases. But right now the trend is obviously outdoor. It's national parks, it's rural in feel. We're staying away from things like small and mass gatherings and things like that. Certainly we're very concerned about our festivals. We entered 900 festivals and events in our event calendar for 2020 on our website. And that's Issaquah citywide. And they are obviously not all in play. And so that's of great concern because a lot of those do drive people here. So, our messaging is going to be about active outdoors. It's going to be a little bit about passive recreation and shopping and having a beer after you take a hike or go mountain biking. The markets, the largest markets that we attract right now locally inside of 50 miles are obviously King County, Pierce County, and Snoqualmie County. Outside of 50 miles, which is really where we're looking to advertise, is going to be more along the lines of Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, Vancouver, Portland, Bend, and beyond. So we're going to take the data that we have, and we're going to be able to do what we call target lookalike audiences, so people that look like the people who used to visit here, and then we can take our messaging to them through a number of different platforms, whether it's Google, AdWords, Facebook, Instagram, mobile ID, a little bit of hopefully press and public relations and some well-placed stories would be really great. And we're very fortunate to have such a diverse portfolio and product of things to do here, and the assets that we have and the amenities. And so we are very much ready to get back on board with the partners as well as the regional partners, because as Kelly and I have talked in the past, there's a great amount of power in this region that we think is going untapped and unnoticed. So hopefully we'll be able to get that kickstarted through this as well.
Okay. And Beth, I do apologize, but I have your screen share. So is there anything, a page particularly I can kind of go back to so we have a chance to see some of that?
Really, the visitor profile of who comes to the area. I mean, I think obviously a lot of us do analytics, follow analytics, and it's an onion. You can just look at it for days on end, right? And so we have a visitor profile of who, what, where, when, why, and how much, meaning how much do people spend. But a lot of who they are depends on what they like to do. So for example, with our Tiger and our outdoor markets, we might have a Gen X market and a millennial market and a boomer market, and they're all going to Tiger, yet they're probably doing very different things. And how we market to them will be very different. So some will use Instagram, some will use Facebook. I think it was really surprising for a lot of people in the industry early on that people were looking for travel in print. They were looking through magazines. They were looking through publications. And, everybody kept saying, a year ago, oh, print's dead. No one looks at that anymore. But that really wasn't the case this year with COVID. So again, as I've said, I don't know who coined the phrase, but marketing is a lot easier when you know what tomorrow looks like. And that's the challenge that's presented in the hotel industry and the hospitality industry in general, is that we don't know, but we're very hopeful and ready to get after it. So, yeah.
So Beth, can I ask you, is it all right then to share this presentation with our audience today afterwards, since we couldn't get the screen share really working during your chat with us today? Do we have permission to do that?
Of course.
Great, thank you.
January. But as far as what Matt was referring to, thank you, Matt. We are looking, although we'd love to share outdoor entertainment, one of the unique things about musical theater and singers in general is we like to project, and with our projection comes projection of germs. So if we are singing in front of an audience, there needs to be substantial space, and as one of the highest quality performing arts establishments in the Pacific Northwest, it is important to us to have a performance that is not only rehearsed, but also represents Village Theater as an organization. So with that, we would need to rehearse, and unfortunately we're not able to rehearse with actors close to one another at this moment. So if there was an opportunity for a representative to perform on behalf of Village Theater, they would need to be singular, and we would need to make sure the projection space was safe for the audience members, because of course they couldn't wear a mask. So we look forward to doing more online entertainment, possibly with important new musicals in the future, but at this time, unfortunately, we are unable to provide entertainment outside of our establishment. We wish we could, but we can't right now.
Yeah, Megan, thank you. That's a lot of information that I don't know that many of us would have thought about. Matt, did that answer your entire question? Did you have more that you'd like to ask?
No, yes, it did. I was just curious if others were thinking of creative ways to, again, maybe partner with some of their cities or Issaquah, Snoqualmie, and so forth, to use other spaces. Megan,
Kathy?
Yes, go ahead, Megan.
Kathy, I did have a question regarding your opening of Front Street. So I had been talking to my team about finding ways to see if Village Theater or other performing arts could take part in this. Although Village Theater is unable to at this time, I wonder, is it possible that other businesses could join in on Front Street in the areas that don't have a restaurant represented?
So that's a great question, Megan. The challenge is right now is that if it were someone that weren't just expanding outside of their front door, they would have to apply for an event permit. An event permit is limited right now to 25 people as we get to phase 2. So, and then I don't know, again, with the city, I can tell you, having done events with the city, there's a lot of liability insurance and permitting fees and things that come into play. So again, I think it's kind of like what you're explaining for your industry. The city has to make sure that whatever they're doing is compliant with the phase we're in. Now, when we get to phase 3, it may change a little bit. And of course, we're all hoping and praying for phase 4, where we can actually have an event. But I'm hoping those retailers and restaurants that are on Front Street do take advantage of that extra space. We just have to kind of, for the rest of it, like I say, is probably more phase 3 when we can start implementing that. And I know there's been talk about that. I know there's been board members on Visit Issaquah that have been having very lengthy discussions about how they can kind of turn that into an event. And right now we're just kind of chomping at the bit until we can. Nicole, your hand, did it go back up again? Or, okay, that's still up from before. Brian Hurley, you had something that you said you were willing to share with the group?
Yeah, just throwing it out there, Beth. I love that you're doing that geodata audience profile. It's just a great way to make sure we're spending money in the right places. So congratulations. It looks like you've got a really good plan in front of you. Our business before COVID was primarily doing those kinds of reports for tourism clients. And I'm just throwing that out there as an offer. I've already paid my subscription fees for the year for all that data. So if any of your physical location businesses or tourism areas or cities want to take a look at it, we can. It's been interesting. I pulled it for Chelan County, pre-COVID and post-COVID, and just seeing the differences of who now is our audience is interesting to see. I won't make blanket assumptions for everybody, but what I've seen so far is exactly what Beth touched upon, which is trips on a tank full are all in play, right? So that makes sense. The Idaho and the Spokane, the Bend, that makes total sense with what Alan has been seeing. And then it's basically anything that you got to get on a plane, the lights are just off, right? But more than happy to pull it for any of your areas, your cities, your physical locations. And the other difference I've just seen has just been less people 55 plus traveling, which Stanford I'd be curious to see Stanford's data on that, but that just makes sense because they're probably more at health risk and maybe being a little bit more conscientious of travel and things like that. So I'm throwing that out there. I've got the data. If it can help y'all, I'd be more than happy to pull it for free. So just let me know.
Great. Let's do this real quick. Everyone that has data, would you do me a favor? If you're willing to share, would you enter your email address on the chat box right now? And that way we have your permission to share your emails, because I don't have permission to share it unless I ask. So yes, if you please just go ahead and share, then we will be happy to not only share your emails with this group here today, but with everybody that wants more data to help support their decision-making over the next few weeks. Okay, and Kelly has a question.
So I was just going to tell you, Brian did one for the Snoqualmie Valley before COVID. And Brian, do you want to tell them like a little bit about that? Because I think it's really interesting for Stanford and Alan both to know some of the stuff that was that you found.
Yeah, and you guys, I'll be more than happy to send you a copy of it and dive more into it. But what we did is we pulled for all of Snoqualmie Valley, and we actually included those Issaquah hotels as well. So we did Issaquah, Snoqualmie, North Bend, Snoqualmie Pass. And we did hotels and popular tourist destinations. So obviously both of your locations were on there. Stanford, about 90% of our data came from your casino there, just because that's about 90% of the foot traffic, right? But it just goes to show, I mean, like, and we'll get into it. I know Mayor Larson has seen it, but the heat map really is surrounding Lake Washington and just getting on I-90 heading east, right? Now that's going to be different for specific locations and things like that. I think that speaks to a lot of the advertising that Snoqualmie Casino has been doing for the past decade, which is just your closest casino far away, or whatever that messaging is. Now, when we extract Snoqualmie Casino out of there, no offense, Stanford, but I just want to get more balanced data set there. You still see a heavy heat map around Lake Washington. That's my child running in the background because we don't have school any longer. But you see more from Ellensburg coming in. You see more Highway 18 coming up. And so it's a little bit different, obviously, a little bit different of a makeup as far as demographic, socioeconomic, and things like that for the outdoor tourism versus the casino. But more than the data set, it's really curious to just start like March 15th until now to see what that data looks like. because for most people it's been noticeably different, obviously.
Right. Okay, so we are about out of time. I want to share one quick story before I let you go, and that has to do with our little beloved Cougar Mountain Zoo. You know, there's a success story there in that they took it upon themselves to reach out to the city, reach out to the chamber. They got several letters of support, and they applied for an exemption. And they would normally have not been able to open until phase 4, and they opened last week. They did get their exemption. So just food for thought for any of you or any of your favorite establishments. I feel like the owner of Vina Bella needs to come back from Puerto Vallarta and apply. But don't tell him I said that. I want to thank you all for joining us today. We have recorded today's session, so we will be making it available to those that couldn't be here. Alan Stevens, Stanford Lee, Beth Javins, thank you very much for agreeing to be with us today and sharing your stories and areas of expertise. It is truly comforting for us to know that we've got people kind of paving the way for all of the rest of us.
Thanks for having us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.